I can say this now is a rat rod. It sits in a hay shed.
That's what I
with
wanted
rats
to.
all around it.
So it is a rat rod.
It is a rat rod.
Welcome to another episode from the Macedon Rangers and District Motor Club.
Morning, Eric.
Good morning. Originally, it was a 49 Chev four-door sedan.
Four-door
Sedan.
What was it called?
It was called a Styliner.
Right.
And it was the first model which they had independent front suspension
Yes.
on the car. So, well, the first Holdens had that.
Correct.
And this was a smaller version of the 48 Cadillac in styling, the 49
Was it?
Chev. Yes. Well, Harley Earl did the styling,
Yes.
and then the 48 Chev Cadillac was the inspiration for then the General Motors products that came after.
Yes.
And he said the Oldsmobile, the Pontiacs, and the Chevrolet should have similarity, but
Yes.
not every detail, just in general.
Well, that carries through till
Yeah.
today
That's right. That's what they do.
with all the styling.
So then, when I started, I thought I bought the thing and drove it home, which was a shocker to drive home.
Was it?
You know, because it was in this car yard up in Bendigo. And I saw it when I was going up there to do some shopping, and on the way back I stopped in to have a look at it, and there were other guys looking at it, and then they're all talking, oh, look at the rust, you know, it's a shitbox, you know, and it's not worth spending any money on it, you know. So I went away.
So you were talked out of it, were you?
Yeah, well, they talked me out, but I asked the bloke, could he start it, and he says, oh, the battery's flat, you know, we'll have to charge it up and do all of that. So I sit inside, and the brake pedal goes to the floor, and I says, oh, you know, this dragged out of a shed somewhere, you know. And anyway, the following week I came back because I had an appointment, and it's still sitting there. So I go in and I said, did you get your battery charged? He says, oh, come back in an hour, we'll have it going for you. I says, all right. So I come back, and he says, don't take your foot off the accelerator because the pump plunger's shot and there's a few issues. And got it going. And the smoke's coming out of it, out of the bonnet. And I thought, oh,
With this same engine?
the same. I said, this engine's stuffed, you know, but rattling away. And I thought, oh yeah. And he said, but I'm interested now. I'm interested, and I'm looking at it with a view to create something different.
Yes.
You know.
Yep.
And I said to him, there's no reg on it. He said, oh, it comes with 12 months reg. And oh, what about roadworthy? Oh, we'll get it roadworthy.
Yep.
So I said,
Roadworthy?
Okay, roadworthy. And so I said, okay, I'll take it. So he said, come back in a week. So a week, I put a deposit down. A week later, I come back and he gives me a little plastic bag and says, we couldn't get all the brake drums off because they're riveted on still from the original factory.
Yes.
But we managed to get 2 off, and these are the pads for the back ones. So he says, you got 2 brakes? And I said, well, they get me to Wood End. Oh yeah, no worries. So I thought, okay. So I bought it, you know. So
Registered or not?
registered.
It was.
So, well, he's a dealer who
Yeah.
knows how to do these. So off I go, and he pointed out, don't take your foot off the accelerator, she'll die, you know. So off I go down the highway, get to Kyneton, and you have to pull up in Kyneton in the main, you know, Mollison Street. And I forgot about taking my foot off the accelerator, dead ass. So I thought, now what? And I can't get it into gear, you know? So I get out and I'm playing with the linkages, you know, and people are backing up behind me. And I thought, I hope it's got enough crank to start, you know? So I turn it, oh, she's off. So I get the thing home, you know, put it in the garage. I thought, oh, that was a stress. That was stressful. And so the next day, I'm fired up, you know. And I thought, I'll just go for a drive around the little block because I'm in the bush. And I get halfway down the street, it's dead ass. So what's the issue? So there's no fuel going into the carby. So I go back home, walk back home 500 metres, and get a 2-litre container of fuel with a hose straight into the carby.
Yes.
And start her up, and in first gear, and I'm back home. And I said, that's it. I'm not driving it again until I've done what I wanted to do with it. So that was the beginning of the whole process. So my first idea, and having never built a body before, but I'd seen tilt-fronted cars. So I create the tilt front, the whole front tilted forward. Right?
At that time?
At that time.
Yes.
Tilted forward. That was relatively successful. Didn't quite fit right, you know, but anyway, I thought I'd work it out somehow. And then I thought, well, I don't want the sedan, so I just cut it, took all the bodywork from there, from the B pillar back.
Off.
Yes.
So it's all gone.
All gone. Took the whole lot off, including the interior floor, like from
So,
the footwell.
so you had the front doors
So the front doors of the car,
and
the
the
tilt front,
and the floor.
and the floor
To there.
interior panel, to there. You can see the footwell for the front and for the rear seat
Yes.
footwell. But from then on, it all was
It's gone. Yeah. So all you had was a chassis.
The chassis.
Yes.
So then I think I'll shrink it and turn it into a coupe. So I moved the bodywork forward as much as I could.
Yes.
And then I thought, oh, look at these, the inner guards. I can use those to have make guards out of them.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that's where we'll start there. And then the club had a meeting with a guest speaker, Leo Pruneau, who was a chief stylist for General Motors Holden from 65 to 85. So I had some photos of the tilt-fronted partial coupe body, showed him the pictures, and he said, oh, we did all that in Detroit. We would cut them
So
up.
that discussion was held here.
In here.
Yes.
So he asked me, where do I live? And he says, I live in Wood End too. He says, as a crow flies, it's only about 500 metres through the bush.
Yes.
So he gets his wallet out, has a little diary in there, pencils in 2 o'clock Tuesday, he says to me. Oh, okay, 2 o'clock Tuesday, he walks in.
Yep.
Has one look at this thing. You got it all wrong, Eric. And I'm saying, where's your plan? I said, I haven't got a plan, Leo. It's sort of just developing as I go. Pen and paper, Eric. So I give him pen and paper. What do you want to create here? Well, I started with the tilt front and the coupe. And he says, well, your proportions are all wrong with the coupe style, right?
Yes.
The roof's too high, and the idea of having outside guards doesn't matter. And I said, well, the other idea is I do like early 30s coupes, roadsters.
So you're sort of now turning a 49 into a 30 something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he said, what model? And I says, well, the Ford Roadster, 32 Ford Roadster. I like that style. So he says, well, if you want that style, because he's just straight on, he knows exactly what you want. He says, stand 5 feet in front of the car, in front of it, and imagine a boat, and it comes to a point. Now, you want a vertical grille, get rid of the whole tilt mechanism, because that's still has the horizontal grille.
Yes.
Imagine building a vertical grille, right, and keep the style line, which is this line here, of the body, to flow through, right? This line here.
That's from which model?
Which is the 49.
Okay. Yes.
That was how they shaped it, with
Yes.
that little depression there.
Yes.
And he said, so then you've got to stand 5 feet here, and imagine it coming to a point, right? Now then, he said, if you look at it, your firewall has a foot pad on it. You step up.
Yes.
Well, he says that won't fit in because it has the front A pillar, which was vertical. You can see the hinges there, outside hinges I put.
The
on
outside
bo-
hinges of.
of the bodywork. Here's the hinges. It's covered. I covered it.
Okay.
But
yes.
the original hinges were mounted to the bodywork, which was straight up here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You with me?
Yes.
So he said you'll have to then shape the car so it curves around, right?
Yes.
Everything on the car must be curved, every part of it. He says that way you'll fool the eye, even though it's made out of hundreds of pieces, there will be nothing that looks square.
Yes.
Everything has
to have a round.
I had that square. He says, oh no, that's got to be rounded. Like there were so many details that he is a detail person.
Yes.
And he would look at it and he says, no. It's got to be this. It's got to be round. So then it fools the eye, and the whole lot comes together. Yeah.
Did you use any paper at this stage?
No paper. So and then of course now I have to make new A pillars, right?
Yeah.
And I have to get rid of the firewall and flatten it out, right? That's the firewall part of it.
So you had to bend that somehow.
Well, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Then the windscreen started here.
That's right.
So then I had to make a cow, right?
Yeah.
So there's the cow. And then he comes up to me he said, when you've got something to show me, give me a call. 3 years later, I ring him up because it took me so long to get to this, not to all of it, but just this front section.
So you've done all the panel work yourself?
Everything. It's all made out of its own original panels.
Yes.
This grill shell is there's over 70 pieces in the shell.
So what was that? Was this the start of the original?
Yeah,
from the 49?
Yeah, I started at the front.
Yes.
So behind this is the actual radiator.
Yes.
But the radiator had a U-shaped support panel, right, which is bolted to the front in 2 bolts,
Yep.
right? And the whole front of the car had 2 bolts, and then the bonnet would just sit on top,
Yes.
right, with the guards that were in it. So I then looked at the grille shell, and if you look at the grille, which was originally horizontal, these lights, which are the original Parkers, were fitted in here.
Uh-huh.
And this part is part of the grille shell.
Yes.
And then it's made in 7 bits. So I cut it and joined 2 bits there, a little bit more of it there,
Yep.
and underneath. Underneath, if you read, you'll see the original top script, which says Chevrolet, which was on top
Of this panel work.
of the actual grille shell.
Okay, it's still there.
It's still there underneath Chevrolet, which would have been,
Yeah.
it's embossed
Yep.
across there. So that then gave me the shape,
Yes.
right? And then this part, this little bit here, there to there, is part of the original front nose of the bonnet.
Okay. Yep.
So it just added on. And then I decided I'd fit the original Parkers in that formation.
So at that stage, this wasn't cut out.
No, that
This-
wasn't. It was just that.
Yes.
And I had the indicators hanging off here,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And then I changed that to mould them into that. And then I made this out of 4x2 steel and just bent it and shaped it and fitted these lights.
Where are they from?
Well, they're hot rodder lights, you know.
Yep.
Dietz or whatever they were called.
Okay.
And then I fitted English P700s inside to give you that nice shaping.
Now, the engine, is that known as the Stovebolt engine?
Yeah, well, it is a Stovebolt 6, but I think it was in the early 30s they improved it, right? They always kept improving it.
Yes.
And so they changed the angle of the valves, inlet valves.
Yep.
And the factory called it the blue flame because of the way the spark plug, you know,
It ignited in the
ignited.
chamber.
But everyone called it the Stovebolt still.
Correct.
But then they gave the blue flame moniker to the next generation of updates because the next one had.
So that we're now into the 50s, are we?
Yeah, we're into the 50s. They then changed it and called it the blue flame because that had slipper bearings and a few other modifications to
Yes.
it. But I said, and this motor has had those improvements. It has slipper bearings in it. It has alloy pistons in it because in 29, when they built the 6-cylinder, they previously only had built a 4.
Correct.
And they had alloy pistons in that. But when they came to building the 6, there was always this cost factor. So to reduce cost, they put cast iron in them.
Did they?
So then they called them the cast iron wonder, you know.
Really?
So that's how that.
I never knew that there was cast iron pistons.
Yeah, this had cast iron pistons in it. And when it came to restoring it, it was a saga because I took it down to the TD Auto in New Gisborne because I was recommended they were the go-to. They said, when they fix it, it'll be perfect. You know? So that's what I want. And I said to Joe down there, I want you to do the whole lot. You know, the engine, the gearbox, brakes, diff.
Yes.
I want it like new, you know?
Yes.
And he said, we can do it, you know? And I'm thinking, maybe I come to wrong place. I see Ferraris and Lamborghinis.
You're in the right workshop.
I'm in the right workshop. But is this going to cost me a bomb or something? But I come to the point and I just wanted it done, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I waited. I'm jumping ahead here, so we better start with the bodywork. So
Yeah, let's quickly...
let's go to that. So this panel here is parts of the guards.
Of the front guard.
The front guards.
Really?
Yes. Well, and also part of the original door was from here to here.
Yes.
And I took some 10 inches off the door
Yep.
to shorten it, and then added the pieces. I think there's 3 bits in there because, and like every curve on this car is the original curves from the car. I had no rolling wheels.
So when you started to slice up the original car,
Yes.
you kept all the pieces.
Everything was hanging around everywhere.
And then,
Yeah.
as you started building the car, you pulled a piece off the
Yes,
off the wall,
yes.
and worked
Yes.
out whether or not it would fit.
I had to have two of them because there's a left and a right.
Correct.
So whatever
Yes.
I did on one side, I have to have another piece that I can put on the other side.
Now, these names,
Well, these are the people that assisted, like Antique Tyres, obviously, their tyres and
Yes.
rims. Kite and Auto, they did the exhaust, and they did some tuning. We had tuning problems with it, so we had to.
Yep.
Leo is the design consultant.
do you still speak to Leo?
Oh yes, I still see him sometimes. He's
Yep.
in his 80s now,
Yep.
and I gave him pictures of this car because
So he's seen it like this
he
now?
has. He's after 3 years he came to have a look, and he just said to me, "Now you're getting it." That's the words he used. Now
Yes.
you're getting it. He says,
Yep.
"Just keep that on." He saes, "Keep that line going."
So you were
through."
inspired at this stage?
I had to now improve because I'm dealing with an expert here. You with me? So this bloke's telling me I'm on the right track. I've got to impress him now, with the rest of it, So, and he said, "So when you got something else, come and give me a call." So anyway, so it had to get an A-pillar made, the cowl. And then he says to me at that time, he says, this car, when it was first designed, had no cross member in the chassis. The 48 had a cross member, which gives the frame.
Was that called an X cross
Yeah,
member?
next X.
Yes.
So this one didn't have it. So they just had a couple of like ladder things, and because they wanted a lower floor.
Okay, yeah.
So he said so what they did back then, they built the body like an egg. So that was mounted on something with 16 bolts.
Onto
right?
a
Onto
ladder
that. So
frame.
that gave it the
strength.
Now you've removed all that. This car's going to weak. And when I was building it, when I had the body off the chassis, you could actually move.
Everything flexed.
Flexed. So
Yep.
he says to me, "You've either got to put an X." I said, "I can't put an X. It doesn't work." Even the convertibles of this model, they had a wire, cross wire, on it underneath.
A wire.
Wire, yeah, a 1/4 inch piece of wire.
Wire or rod? Was
Rod. No, it was wire.
Wire?
Wire, and then
And that provided some rigidity.
yes,
Did
to
it?
to the convertibles.
To the wow. Okay.
So he said, if you can't do that, then you'll have to frame the body inside. And he said, you're going to need plenty of supports to hold it all together. And I says, okay. So the door's been short. The door actually, of course, came up like this.
Yeah, it's all
So
square.
then I had to
Yes.
pull it in. So that
Yep.
I did that by, you can see the A-pillar.
See
there.
Where's that?
That's that pillar there.
here.
That's the A-pillar.
Okay. Yes.
So I made that out of 4x2, but in pieces. I cut it and bent it. Left one side straight.
this is built like a NASCAR.
Yes, yeah, that's where I got inspiration. I got pictures out of racing cars and everything.
So this is RSJ, or
Yes, RSJ 4x2.
but underneath it, again, there's a full chassis.
There's
that
the chassis? The chassis runs here, and it has outriggers from the chassis.
yes?
So what I just did the same thing. We got a chassis here and put outriggers there, and
Okay.
bolted it through to the outriggers
Yeah, to the chassis.
to the
So yeah, this is the outrigger
yes.
welded to the RSJ.
Yes.
That then is bolted to the
through
chassis.
in two places actually, just the same as the
Okay.
factory did.
Yes.
So I removed the sill, and therefore that becomes the structure, not the sill.
Yeah.
The door, that's how I did it. I just stood there like that and bent this over, right? This
To get-
the curve,
Okay. Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And then put pieces of timber or whatever to hold it.
Whatever you got.
Whatever I got, and
Yep.
then tack welded it.
What's this wire here on
Oh,
this?
that runs that. Originally, when I built the thing, I kept every part of it.
So this was from the 49?
No, it was an accessory. You could get it as an accessory, which came off. It would come off the windscreen pillar.
Yes.
Go through there, but I mounted it there. So the interior framing of the door, there's, I don't know, about some 20 pieces. If you look closely, there's bits welded in everywhere, because this hole, I think there were 2 holes to work the
Okay, yeah,
windscreen
to get to the
mechanism.
window.
So I
Yep.
took the pieces off the back, the inside of the back door, because
And
it had
utilised it in...
it had that curve. So I ended up with this big hole.
Yep.
And so I wanted it to look, when you stand back, it looks like one piece, but
Correct,
it's
it
actually
looks-
made out of heaps of pieces.
Yeah.
To get to
And
that.
you've done all the welding?
Yes, all the welding's mine.
Now,
And,
what was the inspiration for the colour?
well, this was going to be painted by L&L Smash Repairs in Woodend, right?
Yes.
And he knew the car, he's seen it a couple of times, been building it in the garage.
Yep.
And 2 of my cars were down there getting resprays, during the period.
Yes.
And he said, how's it going? I said, I'm getting there slowly. It's a slow process.
So how many years was this?
This is 30 years to build.
30.
30
Wow.
years.
Man, oh man.
Because I was working, so it was only...
Yeah.
And it sat in the corner of the garage.
Well, you did everything else.
Well, yeah. and it was too cold in winter to do anything. So
I know where you're coming from.
it just
Yep.
covered up. And I know Mum would say, "You're just wasting your time." And I says, "I'm going to finish it."
So 30 years ago, you were in nappies.
And, I had to teach myself to weld. I first bought Oxy because I thought that's the go.
Yes.
And I'm doing the firewall with Oxy, and all the
Just
stuff just
falling
dropping
out.
down. And there's no much strength in it.
Yes.
So then into the rubbish bin with that kit, and I went and bought the MIG. And then I had to teach myself adjusting the MIG to...
Yep.
Yep. And once I got that working well, you could check, some of them are welded both sides. Well, just to be sure.
Yeah, you didn't want any.
penetration was
You didn't
good.
want any mistakes.
Yeah, so I welded to both sides.
So the colour.
Well, then
So-
I finish it, right? No, almost finished. So I ring Leo and I says, it's down at TD's. 3 years it sat there.
Did it?
Because I said to Joe, I don't want you putting it outside out in the weather. He said, "Don't, we'll have it inside the workshop." So after a month or so, I go down and it's in the front. You open the door and there it is, like a talking piece,
Was it?
So
In the showroom?
In the... And he kind of liked it, And so we became good friends. I'd go there for morning teas and all this. And I'd say to him, when's it going to be finished? He says, when's the engine going to be done? He says, it's still sitting in it 6 months later, He says, well, I don't actually overhaul the engines. I just assemble them. It's done by a friend in Melbourne. He does the overhauling. So when he's got space, because he does trucks and you name it and everything, it'll go down. 12 months later, a bill arrives in the post. They pull the engine out, removal. And what
Wow.
have you.
So they charge you for the removal.
Yeah. So it's gone out. I says, fair enough, it's gone out. So, and then he rings me to say the engine builder wonders why I want to overhaul this motor. It's a boat anchor in his opinion. And I said to him, tell him he can do what he likes with it. Just fix it. I like the motor, So he rings a friend in New Zealand that overhauls these old cars over there. And he said, slipper bearings, alloy piston, all this sort of stuff. I said, whatever, just fix it, So another 12 months goes by and he says, or a bit more than that actually, the engine's back. So I'm going, so I'm thinking it's in, it's all going. So I go there, it's not in, and the tyre's gone flat. And the engine's all in bits on tables.
That's in Woodend or?
In New Gisborne.
Okay, yeah.
And he says, unfortunately, I can't put it together. I'm missing a few bits. And I says, what you missing? Because I had another one in the yard, a ute.
Yes.
And which I thought could be spare panels, but it was so rusted, that thing. And but I had the engine in it. So I pulled the thing out, the engine out, stripped the thing, and I got
So you gave him the parts
that were missing.
Yes.
And then I got the tractor and pulled the engine block because a tree had fallen down in my place, and there was a big hole. So I dragged it in and dumped it in the hole. So it's buried in the place.
The car is?
No,
or?
the spare engine.
Oh, really?
And the rest of the car I cut up and went to the tip. And so because after a couple of years, I thought I was never getting this car back. Right? So I go off and buy this MGB that I bought because I've got to have something to tinker with. That's another story. So anyway, so the engine finally gets in, and he says, "Come down." So he come down, and I said to him, "I had the 6-volt battery in the back, you see." He couldn't start it with that thing. That's hopeless. So we've hooked up the 12-volt to give it a crank to get
Yes.
it down. Okay. And he puts a 50-cent piece on. He says, "Look at it, ticks like a watch." And I thought, wonderful. Yeah.
So was it painted at that stage?
It was in this colour.
Red oxide?
That's how we got it.
Yeah.
So, and then I called Leo to come down, have a look at the car
Yes.
now, down at 10.
So we look at that stage. Was the car looking something like this?
All in primer. There
Yeah.
was no silver. There was no roof, and there were no seats in it.
Yes.
I just had.
But again, Leo could see what
he could see.
he
the
could
shape.
see that. Yeah, he could see
shape.
it.
And
Yep.
I had the spare wheel set up, and the lights were on it, you know, because they're all the original tail lights and chrome work. Anyway, so Leo comes, and I said to Joe, now Leo is not anybody. He's one of the top designers.
Of course, he wouldn't have known that.
He would know. I said, one of the top designers in the world. You know, like he's still in demand. He's a consultant.
Yes.
And he didn't go back to Europe or to America because his wife Christine likes Australia. So he decided, do I want the wife or do I want to carry the wife? So he stays for the wife.
So the missus wins.
She wins. So he walks around and he takes a photo and he says, my Eric, that's his words, my Eric, you've created something here. And then he says, then he told me, he says, Harley Earl did the Cadillac in '48. He's not with us anymore, but he would have liked to see what you have done with his creation.
Brilliant.
So I was thinking, and I told Joe, you know, you better clean the kitchen and put tea on, you know. The girls brought cakes, and so we treated him. We treated him well. You know? But, so that was good. So I was very pleased. Then I go to see Laurie at L&L Smash Repairs. I drive it in because. Yeah. But before I got it, we had the engine in, right, and there was still the brakes to do and a few other things. And
on a permit or registered or
no,
what?
It was just unregistered in his shed, in his garage,
okay.
in the shed.
So you just drove it from one spot to the other spot?
Well, I got that, but I'm coming to the story. So I take Leo back home, and then I say to Joe, when's it going to be finished? You know? And he said, look, I've got all the stuff, so I can't tell you. And it just, unfortunately, I had to put Mum into a nursing home. So I go down to Joe and I says, listen Joe, Mum's put up with this for 30 years, this project. She's going to drop off the perch. She won't have seen it finished, you know. I want it. Yes. And he says, oh, okay, all right, we'll get the boys, we'll finish
Get onto it.
And they got it. So I go up to see Tilden Trim, and I say to, what's his name? Grant. I said, you've had the seats for this thing for 12 months. So I've given you the leather, the old leather, and Mum's going to drop off. He says, you're putting the pressure on me now, he says.
So is that what the material is in the seats?
The seats, yes.
We've got to have a look at the seats.
Yes, Mum's lounge chair. Because she was in the nursing home, I said, she's not going to want the seats. She won't be using the seats again.
So they look like car seats.
Well, the seats themselves come out of a 90s Commodore.
But the covering is all leather.
Is leather from the seats.
Yes.
And I got them to it. They used to come here with the headrests.
Yeah.
And I got rid of the headrests and they shaped it a bit higher.
So this is all from your mum's armchairs?
Yes. So that's how the seats come together.
They look a treat.
I know, I think they come out.
And they look comfortable.
Yeah, and the guys that did it, you know, they thought, oh, it's better than we thought, you know. And it matches the colouring at that stage.
Yeah.
You know? So off I go, and I say to Joe, roadworthy, you know, he does roadworthies.
Yep.
And he's looking at this thing going, you know, you need an engineer to check this out, you know. And we had no windscreen. Right?
So this is nothing here.
There was no roof, and there was because Grant had yet to make the roof and do the seats.
Yep.
But we're trying to get a roadworthy going here. All I had was plastic seats, cut down frames that we could sit there.
There's no wiper blades.
No. Because the roadworthy came because we had wind deflectors.
Is this a wind deflector?
Well, that is added, but you usually have those little round ones.
Oh,
little ones.
Yeah,
you see in the racing cars.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So Joe said, we'll give it a roadworthy with the wind deflectors. You know, that means you can get away without the windscreen or wipers, right?
Yes.
And he said, but we need the engineer to check all your work. So we book in an engineer, and he comes down to Joe's place. They put it up on the hoist. The guy walks around underneath and checks it all. And he says to Joe, you've done nothing. And they're all going, what do you mean you've done nothing? He says, I'm not interested in the bodywork because I'm only interested in engine improvements, brakes, you know, suspension, safety gear.
Yes.
And he said, well, the seat belts, we had the seat belts here. He said, you'll have to put the seat belts in the middle because they rub against the side of the seats.
So is that an opposite lap slate?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
So, okay.
It goes the other way.
Okay.
And I'll show you, we have to reframe it and stuff to fit that in, you know.
Yeah,
so,
of course the other way is just for convenience.
Yeah, but it works
Yep.
So he said, this car can go on H plates. This is the sort of thing that was done in the 20s when people bought a car from a factory and they would just get the chassis,
Correct.
running gear, dashboard, and
And
grill.
everything else was made.
Everything else was made. He says, you've just done the same thing. You just created a body out of its original mechanicals, you
Yes.
know? So that's how it is. So in the back, to get the frame solid, this is actually the boot lid. The original boot lid is here.
Oh,
You
yes.
can see it coming through,
Yes.
right down to there.
So you just welded that
No,
in,
I just
situ,
welded-
and then did you cut
And
this
then I
out?
just cut that bit out.
Yes.
And the inner frame of the boot lid is being...
Is this a centre stop, is it?
Yeah, centre stop. So
Man, she's well put together. Look at all the bars.
I saw racing cars and they had 6-point roll bars, and
Yeah.
you can see right. There's one
Oh.
right underneath.
Correct, yeah.
It took so much time because I had to climb in and try and weld it.
Yeah,
you know.
it would be difficult.
And the framework actually comes through. And
Yeah.
there's bars going underneath.
That's rigid as.
Yes. And this is
Yeah.
the inner of the boot lid, which has been cut and shrunk
Oh, yes.
to fit into, and its original fittings.
Yes.
Although I mucked up the, it had these parts. I had to make that up because I mucked up the other ones. But I
Yeah,
just
that's
came
out
up-
of square stock.
Yeah, out of square stock. Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. And this wheel cover, spare.
Well, the original chassis, you can see there's a bolt going through there,
Yes.
through the original mount. It came out to about here. The original
Did it?
chassis.
So okay, so you shorten it back just to
Back to there.
for the
Back
shackles.
to the shackles.
Okay. Yep.
And this cross piece here that you can just see, that used to belong at the end of the
Okay.
chassis.
Okay. So you just
So I
moved it forward. Yes.
And then to put this spare wheel on, I used those chassis pieces
Yes.
and formed the gooseneck. And then it's got an inside cover on that side as
Oh, yeah,
well.
okay.
But it's bolted to that.
Yes.
So it comes up that way.
Oh,
And that
beautiful.
way I used all the pieces, and just to make sure that I didn't have the gooseneck just on that one crossbar, I made a second crossbar.
Did you?
So it goes onto that underneath, extended through to the other one, so it's rigid.
It won't move.
No, it won't move.
I love my.
Well, you have to imagine what I like my car.
Oh, right. Okay.
Well, so I finish it, and I go to Laurie, and I say, there it is, Laurie, I've done it. Can you paint this car for me? Because he said he would do it. And he says to me, mate, he says, I'm flat out with kangaroo hits and insurance work.
So-
this would take so much time because
Was the expectation at that stage to
He would.
cover all this
to grind it down a bit
and
more.
smooth it?
Smooth it and then fill where necessary.
Yeah. So at that stage we're looking at call it a finished production model,
Yes.
and not seeing all the
You
joints.
wouldn't see the job. And he said he hadn't got the time, and he was the only person that I would trust to do the job.
Yes.
Because knowing I did the 60 Bel Air with him, which he did bare metal.
Uh-huh.
I had bead blasted, I pulled
So-
doors, guards, bonnets, everything off it. It was just a bit of a shell.
Yes.
And they replaced, like you've done, all
Yep.
new glass, rubbers, everything.
Yes.
And I
Yep.
had it even at the Hot Rod show in '93, and I was real proud that this was a really
Absolutely.
nice 60.
Yes.
And it still runs around occasionally. I believe it's in Gisborne somewhere in some collector's thing. I've only seen it once or twice. I've seen it once at the Dales.
But at least you know it's a survivor.
It's a survivor.
Yeah.
So I thought, what am I going to do now? I've got to this point. I've got to take it up to Mum now because
You want to show your
I want
mum.
to show.
Yeah.
So I said, I've done it in kill rust, but it doesn't quite pop, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll do a bit of silver on it, just like the Salt Lake races,
Yes.
colour it up with numbers and what have you to give it something.
Yes.
And so that's how it ended up the way it is.
No, it works. It really does work. Can we
And-
have a look at a photo from what you actually had
Yes.
original?
And the roof, Grant made the roof for me.
Again, that's got the right sort of shape and angles
Yes.
to match.
I made the original frames
Did you?
as Mum's used to have these walkers. And I was looking at her walker one day And I said,
You see potential.
I can see a frame. So I said, Mum, you need a new walker.
Bad Shad, eat that.
I'll buy you a new walker. And she said, but I like the one I got. So I bought her another one. And I made a frame.
Funny story.
You know?
I did a similar thing with my mother-in-law's walking frame.
Yes.
I turned it into a MIG welder
Oh, right.
trolley.
So I make the frame and I go to Grant and I says, there's a frame. He says, just put a cover. And he says, we got Mercedes-Benz would be the best, material stuff. And then I go around to see him. He said, oh, we've turfed your frame. He said, it just doesn't work. It doesn't have that particular.
Yes.
So, and then he rings me up on Saturday. He's been working on this thing, himself. He rings me up. He says, get it out of my shop. He says, I'm over it, He said, but I've given you a real sexy roof.
Yes.
And I says, oh, thanks for that. So I go down there and I go with a mate. Well, it still had the 6-volt battery in there. Do you reckon we could start this bloody thing on the 6-volt? So we're stuffing around with jumper lead and everything. We vanished. I said, Jeffrey, just keep following me. So we got it home, and then we sort of fiddle around with the tune. We had issues with the carby. I had that rebuilt, but we didn't quite understand where the problem was, which Kite and Auto Repairs.
Is that a Stromberg or is it something else? Cicada.
And it had its original distributor, which was a shitty thing, So we had to update all of that,
Yep.
So once we updated that, I put an electronic in it, and then I pulled all the wiring out of the car, the 6-volt wiring. It was all green and all the terminals were shot. So I reused all the terminals and drilled them all out and soldered it all back in a shorter
wiring
loop.
loom, yes.
Put that in, but I was having issues. And I'm in at the post office. Mum sees it. Anyway, I'll get to that bit. So I get it up to Castlemaine to show Mum. And she's faded now, like she's really going. And she says, oh, it's all right, it's nice, you got it done. I said, no, you got to come out and have a look. So I get the nurses, can you get her out of bed and, into this. And so they get her out and we push her out into the car park. And she looks and she says, I can't believe it. She said, look, we pushed her and she said, it's beautiful. I said, yes, it is. We did it.
I hope you showed her the armchairs.
Yeah, I showed her. And so I had a photo of it and she put it up on her notice, in the room. And all the nurses come in, oh, that's my son's car, he built it. She had something to talk about.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so it gets done and the roof gets on. What else did we had problems with the guards.
So
I ran out of metal to do any guards.
What are those guards from?
They're out of, from Echuca. They make these guards for trailers.
Okay, yes.
Well, they're much longer and
so you've shortened it up the
I've shortened it here.
Yes.
And all these holes, that idea just came from looking at Harleys. They got holes and studs and stuff.
Yes.
So I thought this just needs a little bit extra. So
So this is called design flair, is it?
Yeah, yes. And I left the stainless steel screws that way rather than weld it.
Yes.
Because it just gives it that little bit extra.
It does give that look.
And so then I just sort of went on with it all.
And so is this sprayed or brushed?
No, it's original, the kill rust under it, and then I just put with a brush, a bit of silver over it.
Yes.
This, I can say this now is a rat rod. It sits in a hay shed.
That's what
with
I wanted
rats
to...
all around it.
So it is a rat rod.
It is a rat rod. And I had poop on it this morning, and I've got rat baits all around it everywhere.
Well, you're protecting your investment,
And
Eric.
I said to Sarah, I'm not happy.
That's where the term come from.
Yeah. And I had trim rings and caps and stuff. But
Sorry,
then I
you had what?
Chrome trim rings on it.
Which
and
you dressed it.
dressed it up, but then I thought,
you don't need it.
no, I thought a Salt Lake Racer doesn't have
No.
trim rings.
You're actually theming it properly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had to have white walls to be in that era.
Correct.
And so
Yes.
I got the guys. That was a stuff up. I ordered it. Cost me $3,000 these wheels and rims. And
What are they?
well, then from America, that's at the time the dollar conversion and stuff.
Yes.
So the 600 each for the tyres, and
Wow.
then the rims. And I told him I wanted this sizing and everything else.
Yes.
So
That's from Antique Tyres.
So I
Yes.
go down there to get them, and I put them in the ute and take them home. Well, do they fit? They don't fit, right? And I says, why is that? So when I measure it, they've got the back spacing wrong.
The offset's wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
So I go ring him up, and he says, oh, that's all right, bring them back. There's a panel shop, they'll weld them up, redo them.
So at that stage you had the tyres on the rims?
I had them on because they gave it to me with the tyres on.
Okay.
So they took the tyres off, redid the whole thing.
Sorry.
They changed the front tyres because they were all that size. And
so
bigger.
the different diameters front.
Yes. So we changed that bit, and he said it would look better rather than all the same height. If it had
you got the right stance.
Yes.
Yep.
So then I cut the springs because the car was up like this.
Yeah.
Because I took it to, who are they? In Kite, and they got that produce store they've got a weighbridge.
Yeah.
And so we put her on the weighbridge. I mean, I got the weights of the original car and it's just under 700 pounds with empty fuel tank.
Sorry, what? This is 700 pounds
lighter than the original car.
Really?
So that has improved the brakes no end.
Yes.
And the handling with the lowered springs, it doesn't move much. But I was bottoming out everywhere.
Yeah.
So I go to Pedders. I ring Pedders up in Kangaroo Flat, and they said, "Yeah, bring it up. 8 o'clock in the morning, bring it." And so they said, "Yeah, leave it. We'll ring you back 4 o'clock. We'll sort it out for you." I don't get a call. So the next day I don't get a call, and I'm thinking, stuffed it.
You've lost the car.
I've stuffed it. Again, I've done. So at third day I says, I've got to ring. What's happened? And the girl says on the switchboard, "I don't know what's going on with your car. Boss is looking after it." So the boss comes on and says, "Oh, you want it back?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I've been driving it around Bendigo for 3 days."
That's
So
testing everything.
He says, "It's awesome. I love it." I said, "Well, I want it back." Oh. I said, "So what was wrong?" He said, "You cut the springs, but put the original shockers in, so they're not working at their."
They've got wrong travel.
Yes. So he said, "We just turfed that and we put
a shorter shock.
Yeah, 4-wheel drive, heavy duty things in it." And so I'm at Kangaroo Flat railway station, and he said, "We'll pick you up." And now I can see it come around, zipping around. It looks great when someone else is driving it. So he picks me up and says, "I'll take you for a burn." So we go for a burn at the thing, and he's into cars himself, so obviously
you can relate to it all. Yeah,
he could see the work I put into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, so that's how we got it all sorted, and the electrical issues were continuous. And after a breakdown outside the Wood End post office and the boys pushing me to get it started, "Excuse me, fellas, can you
give us a hand?"
Get the thing started. So I go up to the mechanic there and I said, "I've got to get this thing sorted." He says, "I'll give you a card. Ring this guy." And so I ring the guy and he says, "Well, I've been on NDIS and but I'm coming back into it."
Yep.
And he says, "I'll come round and have a look." So he comes around and has a look. And he looks over everywhere and he says, "Your wiring, it's original braided and all that." He just goes, "Look, that just broke." And he says, "Look at this, it's broke." "Well, now it won't start, will it?" Because he just
broke it.
He says, "This is going to cost you to redo this whole thing." He says, "You've only got one fuse that the factory put in. I'll put in relays, everything." I said, "All right, 12 volt, whatever."
Yes, just do it.
And he said, "Well, I'll give you a trade price then, he charges $110 an hour."
Wow, yeah.
So he said, "I'll give you trade." And I said, "All right, I'll leave the garage side door open. You can come and go when you've got time," because he's mobile.
Yes. Yeah.
So how many months did that take? I opened the garage and there'd be little bits of, he'd been here. Runs like a watch.
It does. It's so smooth.
And I could have done, I decided to leave the carby. So this part here, I had to cover that
yes
for this piece, and that comes from the headlight covers.
Oh yeah, because of the shape. Yeah.
So you just
you've cut it around here and welded it in.
Welded it in. Yes.
Yeah, nice. It's a big 6 when you look at it, isn't it?
It is, and mind you, the first after the war, when America was rebuilding Japan, they decided to build. Japan wanted a Land Cruiser. The LFJ, whatever it was.
Yeah,
and
Toyota.
They used the Chev 6.
So that's where Toyota started with their 6?
That's right. So they took the Chev Blue Flame 6
as the basis.
As the base for the Toyota motor. And everyone was raving about this great engine in the Toyota range.
Yep.
And it's a Chevrolet,
I didn't know that.
It's so...
Yeah.
And they kept that motor, the Blue Flame, for donkey's years. And then they just altered this induction and what have you.
So this is painted with What is it? Is it just
It was
an
all
engine
painted-
enamel?
Yes, it was all painted red, like Kilrust red. And then I said to Joe, Joe says, what colour do you want the engine? You know, and he shows me his engine assembly room, which is spotless, you know, like and he's got Pontiac V8s and, you know, different, you know, triple whatevers. They're all painted in different colours, you know.
Yep.
And I said, yeah, black. And he says, black? I said, the whole thing, black. You know, gearbox, the whole lot.
Yep.
Oh, no, he just, I can't see black in this, you know. And so then the day he buys the tins of black, you know, and he rings me up, he says, I've got the rattle tins of black and I'm going to paint it. Are you sure you want it black? And I said, yeah, paint it black. So he paints it black and they eventually stick it in and he stands back and says, it's just right.
Yeah. Now I notice here you've got Holden.
Yeah, well, Holden built it. It came from Canada because of the Commonwealth countries
Yeah.
after the war. So Canada built the body and the body was sent to Australia in complete knockdown.
Yes.
And so the chassis, I believe the chassis was put together in Adelaide and the bodies were in Sydney.
Yes.
And they mated up together in Melbourne when the trains brought the pieces together.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to sort of raise that's really special?
The windscreen posts, these here, they're made from the bumper bars because they had that curve in it.
Ah, okay.
So it's built up, as you can see, like it didn't have a foot. So I made that foot out of 1/4-inch plate
Yes.
and then just filed it.
So this is all steel.
It's all steel made.
Yep.
And this piece here, which is the channel and the top channel, is a square tube with one bent and one side cut off.
Yes.
And everything had to be rounded, as you say.
And this
And that's
here.
just a square tube with and pinched and then extended. So it's just a square tube using one angle, you know, the angle.
How did you cut
The glass has been cut. That's the second pair of glass that we fitted into it. The first,
Is it easy to replace?
yes.
It is.
So, because it's flat, and Joe made sure they tinted it.
Yeah.
And but the first set, because of its shape, they didn't actually. They just had a piece of rubber sitting on.
Yeah.
So it still has that
So
now.
that's U channel.
Yes.
All okay.
done.
Yes.
And so it's easily removed. That bolt comes
Okay.
out, and there's
And then
two
there's
more.
underneath.
There's two more underneath in the pillar.
Yes.
So you undo the three, and that frame lifts off.
Oh, okay.
And then the glass can come out.